This is CBC Vancouver News.
Delta police say a young woman is charged with first-degree murder in the killing of another woman in Ladner, and they are related. Plus,
I will never buy an electric because of the charging.
I'm waiting for an electric vehicle, would love to get one.
as Ottawa moves to end the sale of gas-burning vehicles in Canada, British Columbians wait for more places to charge electric vehicles.
People are concerned about how far they can drive.
I like skating, so I want to try to play hockey.
Opening up Canada's winter game to kids who may not normally get to play.
It's good for her health.
We'll take you to the ice in the Okanagan. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A young woman has now been charged with first-degree murder in the killing of another woman in Ladner last night. And police said the suspect and victim are related. As we shared with you last night, officers were sent to a home on 47A Avenue just after 5 p.m. on Monday because of a suspicious circumstance involving a dead woman. Delta Police says they've now determined the death is a homicide, and the Crown says 28-year-old Preeti Tina Kaur Panesar is charged with first-degree murder. Officers say there is a familial relationship between Panesar and the victim, but they won't specify what that is. Panesar appeared in court today and will stay in jail through the new year. The end of the road is coming for gas-powered cars and trucks in this country. Ottawa has rolled out new rules that will end the sale of internal combustion passenger vehicles. As David Thurton explains, the regulations will effectively stop sales of some vehicles in 2035.
Chris McDermott loves driving his electric vehicle, as long as it's in Quebec.
We're not ready for the transition because the charging infrastructure in certain provinces, Quebec's there, but in certain provinces like Ontario, it's not there.
But it will need to be soon. The federal government is going all in on EVs.
There's no mistaking it. We are at a tipping point.
Ottawa says it has finalized regulations to push manufacturers to make fewer gas guzzlers and more battery-powered motors.
The Government of Canada is helping to ensure we don't get left behind.
The new rules apply to new cars, SUVs, and light trucks, but not used ones. Plug-in gas hybrids will qualify, but the deadline for automakers is strict. In 2026, 1 in 5 vehicles sold in Canada must be electric. In 2030, that's 3 in 5. By 2035, all new stock at dealerships must be electric. But some worry they will be financially out of reach for many.
What we found is that vehicle prices would need to come down by about a third or even half of what they are today in order to be for electric vehicles to be affordable at the very mass market level.
Ottawa and some provincial governments offer purchase incentives. For those that don't, the Environment Minister had a message.
Get on board. That would be my message. I mean, especially in Ontario.
Automakers will need to earn credits to comply with the new rules. That can be done by building charging infrastructure. But the big 3 car makers have some concerns.
There's only 345,000 electric vehicles on the roads today. That is not enough volume to make a charging station a profitable business.
This driver says charging needs to be a political priority.
What needs to be done was what Quebec did starting 10 years ago, was get the charging infrastructure in place.
He says setting EV targets without a reliable way to power them is like putting the cart before the horse. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Here in BC, the province is 5 years ahead of the curve, it says, in meeting EV sales targets. More than 20% of cars, trucks, and SUVs sold here are zero-emission vehicles. Still, as Mira Baines tells us, some drivers are worried about the costs and where to charge them.
Electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular in BC, even as new federal rules come in to phase out gas vehicle sales by 2035. About 1 in every 45 people already own a zero-emission vehicle in the Lower Mainland and southern parts of BC, according to the province. But not everyone is ready, due to both price and environmental concerns.
What's the cost for those batteries for electric vehicles? Like, what is the actual environmental cost?
I think it's a little short-sighted. I will never buy an electric because of the charging. You have to wait for charging. You don't know where to charge, and it's raining.
Clean Energy Canada says the goal of the federal EV sales standards is to create certainty for vehicle manufacturers and infrastructure providers to plan.
BC's own sales regulation, which is very similar to what the federal government is proposing, their first official target was going to be 10% electric vehicle sales by 2025. So BC achieved that target almost 5 years in advance.
She says the move by the federal government is similar to standards being set in some U.S. states like California. This map from Charge Hub shows charging stations and infrastructure across North America. In BC, there's a large concentration of charging stations in the southern part of the province, but there's still range anxiety in other parts of BC.
People are concerned about how far they can drive on the vehicle, particularly in areas where the weather is cold or lots of rain or snow and other adverse conditions that use up the battery.
Provincial incentives and rebates have helped pave the way for BC residents to buy electric. However, there are fresh concerns due to drought and whether BC will produce enough electricity to power its charging infrastructure.
BC Hydro's been planning for this increase in demand, and with a call for power coming in spring 2024, we know that Site C will be coming online in fall 2024 as the reservoir fills then.
The minister says more chargers will also come online in 2024. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A pair of local ski hills were closed today because of the weather. It was too rainy. This comes as Metro Vancouver experiences its third warmest December on record. Joel Ballard has more on the soggy South Coast mountains.
The car lot barren, the snowplows parked, and the ski hills patterned with brown instead of white.
It's pretty warm this year.
And that warm weather has led to less than ideal conditions at ski hills around the Lower Mainland. On the North Shore, Cypress and Seymour closed operations for the day, citing the weather, catching some by surprise.
It's understandable on their perspective, but at the same time it's disappointed because, we came from Coquitlam, but it's still a long way drive.
It's a far cry from last year, when Cypress opened early in November, and by this point, snowstorms had blanketed much of the South Coast. But this year, there's been little snow.
We're really missing that key combination of cooler temperatures plus precipitation.
She says there's a warming trend across much of the province.
So with Vancouver experiencing its third warmest December so far on record, we're seeing temperatures that are about 2 to 3 degrees above normal for this time of year.
Grouse Mountain's downhill ski area was open for business today, but some visitors say the snow was less than ideal.
The condition is not really good. There are a lot of bare spots.
It's slushy, which is a good thing for learning actually, because it's not like icy and hard when you fall, but it's not a great condition honestly.
At Sasquatch Resort in the Fraser Valley, the mountain is yet to open due to a shortage of snow.
We are all staffed up. We've got a great crew just chomping at the bit, ready to go.
The rough start to the season has left some wondering whether the hills are worth the price of admission.
Next year, I wouldn't buy in advance for the season pass.
I wouldn't say it's worth it because it's only one run open, but because we have the season pass, so it's just come for some fresh air is still good.
Looking forward, Environment Canada says temperatures around the coast should drop by the weekend, but won't be accompanied by precipitation. So a white Christmas is unlikely. Joel Ballard, CBC News, West Vancouver.
In the Okanagan, a new program is introducing hockey to kids who may not usually get a chance to play. As the CBC's Brady Strachan shows us, it's helping grow the sport and a sense of belonging.
This is how you tie your skates.
For many, it all starts here, in the hockey locker room, a place where friendships are formed. But some kids, unfortunately, never get a chance to play organized hockey.
It's such an incredible sport, but it's so inaccessible to many, many kids and youth and families.
Now I want you to be holding your stick with 2 hands.
That is where Hockey for Youth comes in. The organization is setting up these Vernon youngsters with a full set of equipment, coaching and ice time, and a chance to learn about and play Canada's national winter game.
It's just going to be a fun, safe, inclusive environment for them to not only learn how to skate, but to learn how to play the game that we talk about all year long.
It all starts with those first few steps on the ice.
Here, come with me, bud.
Learning how to fall and how to stand back up again. Many of the kids here are from families new to Canada who have no previous experience with hockey.
I like skating, so I want to try to play hockey. So today I'm trying to play hockey on the place.
And for the parents, there's a sense of pride in seeing their kids taking their first few strides.
It's good for her health. Yeah. And she can make more friends. Yeah.
And then there are other barriers to the sport that have kept these kids away up to now.
Why don't you play hockey?
My dad doesn't have enough money to pay for it.
This program is about removing the barriers and opening up new opportunities for the youth involved.
It's going to teach me how to skate, and maybe my dad said if I do well, he's going to consider taking me skating more.
And whether it's through taking those first few independent strides or scoring their first goal, organizers hope these kids will share in the joys many feel about the sport.
It's so funny. I like it.
And feel that hockey really is for everyone. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
2 roosters on the loose in Prince George have caused quite a stir. Animal control officers were scrambling to capture these wayward poulterers. Now the SPCA is trying to rehome the birds, but they don't really get along.
These 2 roosters came in via the City of Prince George Animal Control. They were at large and out of care of their guardian, so we don't quite know their pathway into our care. Animal Control had captured them with what looks like a custom-made lasso in one of the photos. They kind of wrangled these 2 roosters. Immediately I go, where am I going to fit a rooster in this building? And then another photo comes in, and where am I going to fit 2 big roosters in this building? And they're not best friends, believe it or not. We had assumed that because they were at large together, gallivanting around the town, that they would have come from the same property. But early on, we noticed that they would just kind of make these noises at each other, and we were just a little worried. So rather than wait until they were jerks to each other, we decided to just house them separate. We have a rooster professional on our team that knows all about them, that has been in charge of their care, their feeding. We are hearing the rooster noises throughout the building, and you go in and they're sitting on the top of their kennels and they're all puffy and proud of themselves. We have tentatively named them. We've got Foghorn, which was affectionately named by the people that had found them. And then we named the other one Cluck Norris. So they'll be going up for adoption. They'll be on our adoption website, and hopefully we can find them a forever home for the holidays.
Ottawa is reviving a Second World War era plan to speed up housing construction. What might that look like in Metro Vancouver? We're going to speak with urban planning commentator Yute Lee after this. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. A student-run Christmas card campaign is helping people living on Vancouver's downtown east side reconnect with their loved ones. And as Karis Hogg reports, volunteers have sent out hundreds of cards on behalf of vulnerable people.
Okay, who did the penguin card? Tell him I give him my $500.
Tavis Dodds is among hundreds who have been helped by Project Hello, which stands for Helping Everyone Locate Loved Ones. He's estranged from most of his family, but he wants to send a card to his dad this year. Last year, the group helped him send a bunch of cards.
Basically did all my correspondence for me, and then I've totally forgot about it, and then I saw them again this year. But then I don't have any addresses this year, so hopefully they can figure it out.
Educator Christy Blakeway formed Project Hello 15 years ago with a few of her students. She says they often use Facebook and Google to try and find some addresses.
Do our best. So this was to Grandma. Okay.
grandma's name? First name and last name? Do you want to write that down for me?
Elementary school kids make the cards, and then every Christmas, Blake Way, along with parents and students from across Metro Vancouver, head to the downtown east side. Not only do they mail the cards, they also help write them.
We always phone a family before we mail the card because we don't want to mail these messages of love and have them go to wrong addresses.
Blake Way says the project has helped make some heartwarming connections.
I had one lady I remember who dropped the phone. She hadn't heard from her son in about 15 years, and the rest of her family believed he had died, and as a mom, she always believed he was still alive.
Blakeway says what started as a way to help people connect with loved ones has turned into something more.
By being able to listen to their stories and help build connections, we've got more back from it. We're the ones that are learning about the community and learning about the stories of people living on the streets and shifting perception of homelessness.
This year, the card campaign is reaching a milestone. They'll be mailing their 1,000th card, making 1,000 connections for people facing barriers who still want to send messages of love. Karis Hogg, CBC News, Vancouver.
It is a video that has been watched nearly 250,000 times on YouTube. Content creator and urban planning commentator Yute Lee took a very close look at the Vancouver special for CBC News. How the special came to be, what made it so special, and why the home design wound up getting banned. In the end, he came up with what he thought was a big lesson learned from that iconic house.
I think there's an important lesson here. Maybe we don't need to be so concerned about the look of new housing because, frankly, looks are just a small part of why we value things. The Vancouver special didn't care about being the most beautiful house, it just cared about being the most useful and affordable house for the people building them. And instead of the world ending, we grew to love these houses, for reasons I'm not sure we'll fully understand. But what I do know for sure is that right now, many cities do need more housing, and they need it fast. So I can't help but wonder, maybe it's time for a new special.
And Yute Lee joins us now. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
You have made a lot of videos about all sorts of things, transit, housing, etc. The Vancouver special one seemed to hit a nerve, and perhaps not surprising in this region. What surprised you about the reaction to it?
Oh, I will say it was it did surprise me as well that it kind of struck a nerve with a lot, or not struck a nerve, but that it resonated with a lot of people. I'll admit, it was one of the tougher things that I had to pitch to CBC. They were like, oh, this is a little niche, it's about one house, who's gonna watch it? But I mean, I was very pleasantly surprised and validated, that people, I think really what it comes down to is that a lot of people, I mean, literally thousands of people have grown up in Vancouver specials and really had a curiosity and sort of a sentimental attachment to this sort of house. But I also think kind of embedded in that story is like a kind of an interesting piece of hope for a potential solution out of this housing crisis that we're in. The fact that we were able to build so many of these houses so quickly because it wasn't just a cheap design, but it was a very repeatable design that kind of got the rubber stamp from City Hall within, I think it was like 3 weeks or something like that. So I think for a lot of it was a fun video to make.
And speaking of sort of repeatable design, we know the federal government reviving the Second World War housing plan, said it would revive standardized housing blueprints for builders. Right. What do you think of this move?
You know, I was really excited to see the announcement come out, especially, shortly after the video. I don't want to take too much credit for it, but, I think the promise in it for sure is that, like, the only real way to build a lot of housing very quickly is to do a little bit of copy and pasting. And I want to be careful with, there's certainly trade-offs you get with designs, and certainly, not every site is the same, especially in sort of these urban centers. But to some extent, we have to do some amount of standardization just to increase the efficiency at which we're building housing right now. I think that's kind of the key part of it. I will say ultimately I'm cautiously optimistic because, the federal government, they referenced, I think it was like wartime housing. It was like a specific initiative that came out of the World War II to build a lot of veterans housing. And there are a couple things that are different today than the way that we're doing it back then, which is first, it was government owned and built. That's and right. Today we're kind of expecting the private sector to build it. So I think there'll be some, it'll be interesting to see how that gets applied.
And I have to ask you quickly, when it comes to the provincial government, you're on the board of BC Housing. One of the big plans they've talked about, one of the big emphasis, has been building around transit hubs. Right. Quickly, what are the challenges and what are the benefits of that you find?
Yes, the benefits I think are pretty evident in that if we are to put a bunch of housing anywhere in our region, it's really in these areas that are well serviced by transit, because there are sort of growing pains that you can avoid when you build near transit. A lot of new housing, especially when you put it on the outskirts of a city and places that aren't well served by transit, you need to build a ton of parking. Often these places don't have a lot of amenities nearby. And so, when we're talking, building lots of density near, let's say, SkyTrain stations, it's a pretty sensible place to put it. But the challenge, of course, I think it is that the location in which we've built transit is also where we have a lot of renters and people who are vulnerable to displacement when new development comes in. And so I do think in some areas we have to be extra careful about those sorts of concerns. I think there are some areas that absolutely need a ton of new development. There are specific ones like Nanaimo Station or 22nd Avenue Station, where it's literally just houses next to a SkyTrain station.
Lee, we appreciate your time and expertise. That's all we've got for now, but thanks so much for coming in.
Fair enough. It's a real pleasure.
There's a live shot of downtown in a dark BC place. We're due for a bit more damp here on the south coast. Darius will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
If you live here in Mount Stewart, you definitely know Nanny Shirley. She runs the breakfast program here at the school. She's a volunteer and has been for years, and everybody says we gotta meet her. So let's go inside. Tell us a little bit about how the morning's going. What's the setup like?
Well, we come in and just do what we're doing now. We get ready and we have to toast all this bread.
All of it?
Yeah.
How much bread do you got there?
2, 4, 7 loaves, 107 slices of toast.
So you nominated her for us to come visit and take a look at what she does. Why?
Because the woman is awesome. She never stops. She doesn't mind people knowing that she's 91 years old. I have a hard time keeping up with her.
I make the toast, Arlene does the cheese, and she puts it in, we have those containers.
Yeah, we've been doing it, I think, for 9 or 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to do this?
Well, as she said, she had great-grandchildren in the school. I have grandchildren in the school. I have a daughter-in-law who teaches here. There's a lot of kids that are up at 7 o'clock in the morning and on the school bus, and they don't have a chance to have breakfast home.
How many times have you had breakfast from Nanny Shirley?
Like all the time.
Can't even count?
Since kindergarten.
Since kindergarten. You're going to be graduating and she's going to have fed you every year.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that mean a lot to you guys?
Yeah.
Good morning, kids. I'm your new delivery here this morning. Good, how are you, Spencer?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
She comes in, she's smiling, she's helping out in the community, helping out in the school, doing anything that we need. And she takes care of us all.
If it wasn't for Nanny Shirley, the breakfast program would be pretty boring around here. And like I said, the kids love seeing Nanny Shirley. Nanny Shirley loves to see the kids.
You have a good day, okay? See you later.
I like to have her energy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'd love to have her energy.
She keep you on your toes?
Oh, darn tootin' she does. Yeah, she does so. Keeps me on my toes. Yeah.
I love every minute of it. And I wouldn't give it up unless come the day when I have to, and that'll be, I don't know when. No, I enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
For 37 years, British Columbians have been donating to food banks at CBC British Columbia's Food Bank Day, raising more than $18 million for food banks in BC. December 1st kicked off the annual charity drive and continues to the end of the month. We thank you for generously donating and supporting local communities in our province. Make the season kind and donate until December 31st at cbc.ca/foodbankday.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi is back with our BC-wide weather forecast, and it is certainly mild here, at least on the south coast.
Yes, that's exactly the case. So we had those snowfall warnings and freezing rain warning in place for parts of the interior earlier. Some of that rain and freezing rain and snow expected to continue overnight tonight, but should ease off by the time people are up and at 'em tomorrow morning. And so I wanted to start off with a bit of a different map today. This is our accumulation map. So we've seen it many times, but we don't usually start with it. But I think it tells our story pretty well. So we have most of that snow that we had that snowfall warning for already easing off just east of Prince George and north of Prince George. And then if we zoom in to the south coast, you can see that really except for the western part of the North Island, we're not going to see too much more rainfall over the next 48 hours across much of the south coast. Now, we can see that for Vancouver, it's not saying any rainfall at all. I wouldn't count on that necessarily. We may see some scattered showers pop up, particularly overnight tonight and into tomorrow early afternoon, but I wouldn't expect too much at all, at least until we get later into the week. Probably around Friday is our next chance of seeing some significant rainfall. And so you can see there as that system moves through, we get to see some cooler air move in to the lower mainland. I still wouldn't count on seeing much snow for the local mountains, though. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But as we heard, some soggy conditions expected to continue over the next while. There's a chance. I won't say there's no chance, but mostly what we're looking at is continued rainfall for the south coast until temperatures start to drop into the weekend and early next week. Now, here are our conditions across the province. You can see plenty of what seems like precipitation, but again, a lot of this will be pretty short-lived, pretty isolated, and then we have those flurries breaking down into the Columbias. Those should start to ease off as we get later into the day tomorrow. And then here is our local mountain forecast. If we take a look, you can see not really anything coming over the next couple nights. I think our next chance of getting some snow for those local mountains will be Friday night into Saturday, but again, even still, I wouldn't count on it. We're just not getting too chilly. Freezing levels still are at around 2,200 meters, so still a ways off from getting any proper snow. But still a low chance of showers the next couple of days, and then the next rainfall again on Friday.
Darius, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
And that is your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.